Aloha! Katie from the K Show blog here. Today we're going through 10 things you need to know before you visit Oahu. So I have a little story about how this video sort of came to be. If you've been following my blog for a while, you know that I started it when I lived in Hawaii, and originally it was really just to share some of the adventures on the island and things I was doing. And I never actually updated any of my old posts. Like, I never changed how they were. Sometimes I changed little things I was learning or took a few extra photos out or things like that, but I kept the words and the content as it was. And I always thought that was a really good way to show, like, no matter what you want to do, don't let not being perfect at it or not knowing what you're doing stop you from giving it a go. Like, I didn't know anything about blogging when I started. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just dived in, I started it, I put myself out there, even though they were all horrible at first. And I wanted to show people, like, you know, you can see my progression of when I started to now, and hopefully that would inspire other people to just give things a go, whatever they're really wanting to try. But recently I had to look at one of my old posts, and I don't even remember which one it was or why I was checking it, but I had to check one, and when I looked at it, I thought, it's really not useful in any way. So currently I'm going through all my old posts and updating them. I'm keeping the spirit of KSB in there, but I'm adding a lot more useful information to make them so much more helpful for people trying to plan a trip. It's a very big job, and the Italian internet I have is terribly slow, so it's gonna take some time, but just in case you were trying to plan a trip to Oahu and you'd seen my old posts and thought they were unhelpful, I'm sorry first up, but you know, check back in because they're getting a lot better. I've done like a couple of pages worth at the moment, and they're going really well. I'm excited to see them change. I can see how much more helpful they are now, and it's exciting to change. At the same time, it's very sad in a way because it feels like I'm erasing part of my history, you know, like my blog is my show, it's my story, and it kind of feels sad to get rid of it, but I know in the long run it's gonna be so much more helpful for people. And that's the whole goal of the blog in general, so that's all I can do. So it kind of brings me to today's video, where I wanted to share some tips for planning a trip to Oahu, because I realized I'd never really done a video like that. So I'm doing this post now. It's a little bit reflective, mostly because I've just been thinking about Hawaii a lot, been going through a lot of photos and everything. So it's been on my mind, and then I thought I want to put this out there to help you guys plan your own trip, or help you adjust if you've just moved there and maybe just brand new to the islands like I was at one point. Here are some tips. I hope you're going to find them useful. If you do enjoy it or find it useful or get any value out of today's video, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave me a little comment at the bottom. It really helps the channel and helps YouTube see my videos as something important and worth sharing to other people, so it helps me help even more people. And as always, I appreciate any time you can give to help support my channel and support my blog. So let's get into it. And number one is rent a car. So yes, it adds an extra cost to your travel planning, but Oahu and all the islands for that matter, they're really a place where you need a car to get out and experience things, and it's gonna make your trip so much more full, and it's gonna make everything a lot more easier. There is public transport, and it's okay, but it's pretty limited, especially as you start branching outside of the Waikiki area. And outside of Waikiki is where you find the best beaches, the best hikes, the best everything, in my opinion. And I love Waikiki. It's amazing. It has such a energetic vibe to it. There's always so much going on, and it gives you that feeling of like, I'm a tourist in Hawaii. It's great, but there's so much more on offer outside of Waikiki. But in some cases, you wouldn't be able to get there if you didn't have a car, and in others, you might have to cut your time short just to meet the bus schedule. So in my opinion, it's really worthwhile and very necessary to rent a car when you visit Oahu. And you don't have to shell out loads of money and get a fancy Jeep or a 4x4 or anything. The Jeeps are really an aesthetic thing, and 4x4s are just unnecessary. So just a basic car will do, but it's gonna allow you a lot more freedom if you have a rental car. So number two, secure your belongings. On the topic of cars, it's worth noting that car break-ins can be a bit common on the islands, and it's nothing to be scared of, it's nothing to put you off, don't be overly paranoid or anything. It's just something to be aware of. And what I recommend doing is always leaving your car empty. Always. Even if you think you're leaving stuff in there and then you think, oh, it doesn't matter because it's not valuable. The thieves that are looking in, like, they don't know whether it's valuable or not. So you're sparking curiosity. It's best to just leave it empty. And I definitely recommend putting whatever you're not going to be taking with you on that adventure in the trunk of your car, but before you get to the beach or the hike or wherever you're going. If you get to the spot and then put everything in the trunk of the car, you're really just advertising where the good stuff is. So it's better to do that before you leave wherever you're starting from, put everything you don't need in a trunk, and then go onto your adventure. So for your beach days or anything like that, you can get a dry bag pretty cheap off Amazon, and that will allow you just to put your phone and maybe your car keys or whatever else in the dry bag, keep everything dry, and you can swim with it. So you'll always have your valuables with you. Definitely a lot better than leaving it on the beach or leaving it in your car. Number 3, try a bit of everything. So for a small island, there is so much going on. Even when we just think of the hikes on the island. You got waterfall hikes in the jungle, you got ridge trails that will take you up steep hills but then to these lookout points with amazing views. You have stairs that turn into an outdoor stairmaster. There's hikes that are flat coastal trails where you can watch seals along the way. Like, there's so much variety even just on this one small island, and that's just hiking. So then when you think of the different sections of the island, they're all quite different from each other. Like the North Shore is so much different from Waikiki, and that's so much different from the West Side, you know? You'll get a different experience in each area. And I really recommend doing a bit of everything so you can experience all that the island has to offer. So I have a ton of guides on my website, obviously, if you're looking for ideas on where you can branch out and what you can do. So definitely check that out. The ones that aren't updated right this second will be updated very soon. So you're gonna have brand new content there and a lot of really useful tips. But definitely make sure you get out of Waikiki and try a lot of different things. Number 4, respect the residents. So it's a small island, you know, and you have to fit in the tourists, the people who live there, and all that beautiful nature. So you kind of get in each other's way a bit. And some of the hikes and beaches and places like that are right near or around where people live. So it's really important if you are doing a hike or going to a beach where you have to park around people's homes, just take a couple of seconds to make sure you're not parking anyone into their driveway. I know it seems like it shouldn't need to be said, but it does happen a bit, and it can cause a bit of tension between, you know, people who live there and the people who are visiting or adventuring. So make sure you're not parking anyone into their driveway. Don't make an excessive amount of noise and be disruptive to the area, especially if you're doing like sunrise or later in the evening hikes. That's really important. Don't leave any trash around, like just common sense to make sure you're showing respect to the people who live there and treating them as you would like to be treated if you live there. So number 5, some must-try foods for you. Now I know we all know shaved ice, and it is amazing and refreshing and perfect anytime, but especially after you've been at the beach or out hiking. But here's some other of my favorites that I think you just have to try. So the first one is Loco Moco. Now you can get this if you're a little bit fancier. You could go to like a cafe or something, but I recommend going to Zippy's and getting Loco Moco. And what it is like it's a heavy meal that you're gonna have, but you have to try it. And it's rice with rissoles. I can't think of the American word for them right now. Let me think. But mincemeat rissoles, eggs, hamburger patty. It's like the mincemeat, you know, the hamburger patties that you put on a... Look up rissoles. That's the Australian word. But yeah, hamburger patty I think is the right word I'm trying to think of. With some eggs and then topped in gravy. It sounds heavy, it sounds, you know, maybe a bit different, but it's really, really nice, and it's worth trying while you're there just to experience it. You also have to try spam something, spam anything. Like there's a lot of spam there, and if you can get the spam musubi, which is like the little snacks, and it's a rice with a spam, sometimes some egg on it. Sometimes I've seen it just spam on its own, and then there's a little bit of seaweed wrapping it. They're very nice as well, and some of these things I'm mentioning, like I never would have thought I would recommend that to anyone, but they're really fun to try, and they're actually a lot better than you might think. The next one I want to recommend to you is the poke bowl, which you might have already heard of this. I think they're like fairly popular now. I just never even heard of it before I went to Hawaii, and I definitely never ever would have even tried it. I wouldn't think I would try that, like, let alone like it. So even if you think it sounds a bit weird, make sure you try it anyway, unless you're allergic, obviously, and give it a go with an open mind, because it's so much better than you might think. But what it is raw fish. There's a bowl with some rice and then raw fish on the top. Now the raw fish is usually coated in different kind of sauces and flavors, so you can get different ones. You might just get, you know, the oyster sauce one or a California roll style one, so you can choose which one. But it's basically raw fish and rice in a bowl with some sauce. And I never would think I would even like put that in my mouth, but It is so good, so I recommend trying it. I didn't really have like a go-to place for these. I would just get them kind of wherever I was, so just keep an eye out and try one while you're there. Next one I really want to recommend you try is Huli Huli Chicken, and Mike's Huli Huli Chicken in particular. And he has his shop in like the side of the road in this little shack, and you can see all the chicken cooking outside, but it is so good. You can get a good meal with the chicken and some shrimp and maybe some mac salad. It's very awesome, very tasty. Definitely recommend you try some of that. I also really want to make sure you try some malasadas, and Leonard's Bakery is probably the most popular place for these, but they're like a donut with sugar on the outside, and you can get different cream fillings on the inside. So good, especially if you have a sweet tooth. They're very good. And there's probably going to be a little bit of a line waiting when you're there, but don't let it put you off. Make sure you try it. You won't regret waiting in line. They're very good. And while we're on the topic of sweets, I also want to recommend to you Ted's Bakery. And if you can go to his bakery and get the Haupia cream pie or Haupia coconut cream pie. I can't remember the exact wording of that, but it's very good, and you have to try that or anything from his stuff because he makes amazing sweet treats. And also a snow puffy. I don't remember the name of the bakery for this one, so I'm gonna like look here because I'm gonna put it here once I remember it. But there's a bakery that you gotta try their snow puffies. Another great thing if you have a sweet tooth like me. So number 6, stick to the trails. This is so important just for safety purposes really, because you don't want to go off the trail exploring or off the trail to take a selfie and then lose your footing and slip or get lost or something like that and then need to be airlifted out. Like nothing is worth having that happen to you. I don't want to see you getting injured or hurt or anything like that while you're out enjoying the trails on Oahu. So just make sure you stick to the trails. It's very easy. It's also a really good idea just to help preserve the area. Like we want our children and our children's children and our children's 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 and all the generations to come to be able to enjoy Hawaii as much as we did. But if we're all branching off the trails and eroding the landscape of the area, it's not really going to be there in the same way for them to enjoy. So it's just important to be a responsible traveler and make sure we're respecting the land as well. And it's also a good idea to do a little research beforehand, my blogs, or wherever you do your research, like TripAdvisor or whatever. And then you'll be able to get an idea of the trails, so as you're walking, you won't get lost, you know. Some of them can be a little bit more difficult to know where to go. Most of them are fairly easy though. But if there are any of those ones where it's a little bit trickier, if you've already looked up a guide to how to do them, you'll be prepared for that. Number 7, make sure you go to a luau. Now I know some people think these are overrated and touristy, but we are tourists, so why not enjoy some fun touristy things? Like I'm not against doing touristy stuff, and the luau's are actually so much fun. You get to try so much new foods and learn about the foods while you're there. And I deliberately left some of the foods out when I was talking before about the foods you should try, because I knew you'd be able to try them at a luau. But you also get to learn about the culture and experience more about the culture, and it's a good way to support the tourist economy, which I think is really important to do while we're traveling. My favorite luau is the Polynesian Cultural Center. It's on the north shore of Oahu, and you get to spend the day looking at exhibits on all the Polynesian islands, so you learn about their cultures in such a fun and interactive way. And then you go to your luau, which is your feast and kind of your mini show. It's kind of a warm-up, and then they have an additional show afterwards where you get to see a performance of all these cultures you spend all day learning about. So it's a bit of a long day, but that performance is amazing at the end. That's a real highlight, and it's so worth every cent you would pay to go and experience all that. So I really don't want you to miss that because there's so much fun, and there's other luau's on the island as well, but this one is just my favorite. So number 8, watch a sunrise and a sunset. So even if you don't like waking up early, make sure you go and check out a sunrise. There's something very magical and just right about watching the sunrise over the ocean and just like waking up together with the sun and being out in nature. It's a perfect way to start the day, and Hawaii's a really good place to be able to do that because there's always a good spot in close proximity for you to be able to do that. So you don't have to drive like an hour and a half or whatever. You could maybe just do a quick drive, watch the sunrise, and it's such a perfect way to start the day. So some of my favorite spots for sunrise are Makapu'u Lighthouse Trail, Lanikai Pillbox Trail. You can watch it from the top, or just go to Lanikai Beach and sit on the beach and watch it. That's another great way to start the day. Cocoa Head stairs. You can, if you want to do an early morning workout, you can walk the stairs and then watch it from the top. Or Spitting Caves will probably be my other one. If you don't want to do a big hike or anything, you could just sit on the edge of the world and watch the sun wake up. So there's some good options for sunrise, but pretty much anywhere. Like, I've watched it all over the island. It's beautiful everywhere. It's a beautiful way to start the day. So for sunset, you're going to see it every day because you'll probably be awake. But I think it's good to make sure you stop and really watch the sunset and experience it. When I would visit my amazing uncle on the Big Island, we would watch the sunset together every day, and he would say, sort of like, as you're watching the sun go down, you say goodbye to today's worries, you let them go down with the sun, and then you start fresh on the next day. And I think that's such a great way to think about each day, and it's such a great way to, you know, let the day go and then start fresh. It's just, it's healing, it's beautiful. And for places to watch the sunset, you really can't beat Yokohama Bay, Kaina Point, Makua Beach, or if you're downtown, Mount Tantalus Lookout is a really good place to watch the sunset. But no matter where you watch it, just make sure you take that time to say goodbye to today's worries and get ready to start fresh the next day. Number 9, our second last one. So you should absolutely swim with sharks. Wait, I know you think I'm crazy, but hear me out. So as a general rule, I think you should avoid the aquarium and maybe any hotels or other facilities that hold large marine mammals in bathtubs. You're on a small island, it's surrounded by the ocean, and they all live right out there. So what better way to experience it than by seeing these great animals out in the wild where they belong? And sharks, I think, is one you should go and swim with. Now, I want to recommend to you Hawaii Adventure Diving on the North Shore. Now, the guys at this place are going to be able to take you out on the boat. You're going to get off the side of the boat into the water and be surrounded by sharks. No cage or anything. You have an experience where you swim alongside them in a safe and controlled way, because the guys are shark behavior experts. They're going to be looking out for everything and keeping you safe. But you will also get this incredible experience which will probably change your perspective on sharks forever. So I've been out with these guys a few times now, maybe 3 or 4 dives with them. It's amazing. They have a safety rope. If you're not a good snorkeler, you could just hold the rope and like float in the water, or you can swim around a bit within the limits of sort of where they guide you. It's such a great experience. It's just an incredible thing to be like up close with all these sharks. Like, I know it sounds scary, but it is an amazing experience that I really want to recommend to you. And I've been out with a few companies on the North Shore there, but these guys are my favorite. Okay, we're up to number 10. This is the last one on our list, and it is when to go. So winter versus summer. So basically, if you visit during the winter months, the west side and the North Shore are pretty much going to be off limits for swimming and snorkeling. The surf conditions get really dangerous during this time, and almost all the beaches are red flagged, so you can't swim in them. So that means no snorkeling at Electric Beach, no snorkeling at Sharks Cove, and no seeing that beautiful clear water at Waimea Bay and jumping off the big rock. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad time to visit Oahu though, because it's a great time to see whales. You can literally just sit at the beach and look out and watch them swim by, even with their babies. It's very cool to be able to do that every day. Also, it's a great time to visit the opposite areas of the island, because they're usually at their best during those months. And then lastly, if you love surf and want to see some of the big surf competitions, that's the time to visit, because that's when you can be up on the North Shore and be watching them all. By contrast, the summer months are really when those areas come alive in terms of swimming and snorkeling. The water's very clear, it's very beautiful, there's a lot of sea life in there to be seen, and it's a great time to visit those areas if that's what you want to do. But it's the summer months and it's busier, it's a little bit more expensive, and it's going to be more crowded. So you have to take that into consideration, and also the fact that the opposite areas of the island might not be at their best during that time. So I don't think there's a bad time to visit Oahu. It's a beautiful place, it's paradise. There's something to do at all times of the year. It's just going to affect sort of where you go and what you do. So maybe just think about the main sites you really want to hit, and then go at their best time of year to see them. So that's my tips. I hope that can help you start planning your own trip there. And absolutely check out my blog, because I have a lot more posts with more detail and more information on all these places and more places that I didn't even mention in this video. So I hope they'll be able to help you as well. And if you've been to Oahu or Hawaii in general, you know that it's a place that will just steal your heart like nowhere else. So maybe pop your favorite place in the comments below. We'll start a little running list of the must-see places, and also just talk about Hawaii because it's just so beautiful. It's a place you can just think about and like be back there in your mind. It's a nice bit of nostalgia for us all. So I'd love to chat with you about that. I'll leave any useful links in the comments, as well as my Instagram and Facebook if you want to chat on there as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope this can help you, and I'll see you next time.